Hi, everybody. Thanks. We're glad you're here. We appreciate it. It's good to be with you again. Our guest today is the one and only Blaine Feyen. Blaine of Real Value Coaching, just one of the great guys of real estate appraisal. We've got some questions. He's going to answer them. He's going to give us his take on what's going on in the world of real estate appraisal. And when you're getting advice from Blaine, may I suggest you look at it seriously because it doesn't get too much better. Blaine, how are you today?
Tim, always great to see you. Great honor to be here. Happy New Year. I'm doing awesome. Happy to have made it on the other side and into the new year. It's good to see you.
Amen. And it's always good to be looking at the green side of the grass. Um,
Right.
Blaine, we've got a lot going on in appraisal world. We got the fires out in California. We got Fannie Mae making changes left, right, and sideways. We've got a UAD 3.6 coming up relatively quickly. We've got the GSEs sending love notes to appraisers and state appraisal boards. So
Yep.
let's get
Yep.
started. My first question to you, and just so everybody knows, well, these podcasts are not scripted. We do have some talking points simply so we can limit the discussion. So, Blaine, number one, if I may please, take a couple of minutes. What keeps you awake at night with worry about real estate appraisal, and what keeps you awake at night with pride about real estate appraisal?
Mm, good question. Uh, Starting with the pride first, certainly proud of uh, what we've been able to build over the last, I mean, this is my 24th, 20, going into my 25th year in real estate appraisal. Super proud of the companies we've built. I built several companies, sold some. Uh, Super proud of that. Super proud of the uh, clients and customers, relationships, and reputation that we've been able to build over 25 years in our market. And of course, super proud of the mentorship and the coaching, not only to our own people. I've personally trained almost 20 appraisers over a 25-year period, and I would say indirectly, who knows how many. Uh, and then my coaching company, of course, we've been coaching appraisers for about a decade now. So that gives me tremendous pride to be able to help people and to kind of fall back on the reputation and the relationship thing. Anybody who knows me from my podcast knows that I'm a relationship guy. I love building my companies based on relationships. Uh, Worry, I guess if we can use this as a teaching moment, I learned living in a Zen monastery that worry does nothing for us. So I never worry. I was given the worry gene by my mother, and I identified it fairly early on, and I realized it doesn't do me any good. So I try to look at everything as challenge or opportunity, and not necessarily worry about it. And the thing about that viewpoint is that often the opportunity is buried in the challenge. And I believe that there are lots of opportunities coming. There's opportunities right in front of us. In fact, I have a card on sitting on my desk from an author and a speaker from the early 1900s, Corey Ten Boom, that says, worrying is carrying tomorrow's load using today's strength, carrying 2 days at once. It's moving into tomorrow ahead of time, and that worrying doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow, but it empties today of its strength. And I kind of use that. I rely on that to remind myself that it does no good. Let's look at what the opportunities are, and uh, and try to take advantage of them. So I think there's lots of opportunity ahead. There are challenges and certainly changes coming, and we have the choice to sit on one side and complain about it, worry about it, or jump to the other side and go, it's coming. Let's do something about it. So that's kind of where I sit on the pride and the worry piece.
Excellent. Thank you. And that's why they call you Sensei, too. All right. The second one, the second question. Now, you have, on your podcast, you have spoken about appraisal waivers. And basically, you've been relatively neutral. So, okay, let's talk about appraisal let's try that again in English. Let's talk about appraisal waivers. What
Mhm.
is right and proper about them, and what is wrong and improper about them? And again, this is Blaine's take on it.
Mhm.
This is, you're not speaking for any any organization. You're just speaking for Blaine.
Yeah. Well, thank you for setting it up that way. Right and proper, probably tough to come from a position of right and proper because I don't know if I'm the right person or in a position to grant something to be right or proper. But I'll tell you my position on waivers. If you study the whole view of the who, what, where, when, and why, of course we can find some things that we could infer some nefarious intent on the who, what, where, when, and why. But the reality is Fannie and Freddie are massive organizations. They account for almost 80% of all mortgage activity in the United States. And as we know, they have been building a pretty robust data collection system. Yes, off the backs of appraisal products, but we're doing appraisals for Fannie and Freddie. It's on their form, it's put into their portal, it's in their system. So whether that's right or wrong, I don't necessarily comment on that. Uh, they they're the ones either giving the money or backing the money. So in a sense, they're the ones selling the product. If they want to grant somebody a waiver, that's on them. And so I try to look at it from the standpoint of the companies, the GSEs, if you will, that are backing and giving that money, and it's up to them. We don't have to like it, and I know a lot of appraisers don't like it, but I also think a lot of appraisers sit in the position of entitlement, meaning they look at yesterday, how many appraisal orders they were getting. They then look at today and go, I'm getting fewer because of appraisal waivers. That's bad. You're hurting me. Therefore, because I feel pain, it must be bad. And then they look at tomorrow and they go, it's going to get worse, which it very well may. But if you back up a little bit and you come from the position of you're not entitled to anything, we're not entitled to anything in life. Nobody guarantees us anything. And when you got into the appraisal industry, you were not getting into it to have a safe, secure job. You got into it because you saw opportunity. And those opportunities, I think, are evolving and changing. And appraisal waivers just happen to be one of the challenges in reducing that volume that somebody may have had yesterday that they can't count on today. But if you come from a position of entitlement that we are entitled to that, now I know the position a lot of appraisers take, which is they're harming the public by giving out those appraisal waivers. Very well may be. I try not to engage in arguments that I have no control over the outcome. And so it does me no good to argue, especially on a Facebook forum, whether or not the public trust. You wrote a great article in Working RE on the public, the whole concept of the public trust. The I think it's a silly argument. We have no control over that. It's their product. It's their money. They get to do with it what we want. The only thing we get to do is look at that as a data point and go, what decisions are we going to make today that will benefit our company tomorrow? And so that's the direction I try to take. The important thing to understand about appraisal waivers, and I try to educate all of our appraisers, our coaching students, and our realtors on it, is the message you can send to the market if you're concerned about it is that an appraisal waiver is not Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac confirming the market value of that property by granting a waiver. That is simply them saying they are okay with the risk on that transaction. And so I think there is a misconception in the market, both with realtors and a lot of lenders that I talk to, where they just take the appraisal waiver that Fannie Mae is saying, yep, that's the market value. We look at the sale price, we look at the contract, we look at the market data, all is good. It is not. Fannie Mae is simply saying our risk models are really good and we're okay with the risk on this transaction. They are not confirming that it's the market value. And that's the message really that I think appraisers should be sending to their realtor partners and their lender partners, not that it's going to damage the public trust. Everybody is self-interested. The loan originator, the realtor, everybody needs to feed their family. They don't care about this nebulous concept of protecting the public trust or crashing the market. They want to get paid and move on with the transaction. So at a bare minimum, I recommend advising your realtor partners and your lenders, hey, just understand, let your clients know it's not Fannie Mae confirming the market value. So advise your client that maybe if they're concerned about that, they get their own appraisal and move on from there. So That's my take on appraisal waivers. You're muted, Tim.
Yeah, I am. I am. Thank you. All these buttons I have to push.
Yeah.
You raise an interesting point, Blaine. You say, okay, so the lender gets a hold of the borrower and says, okay, given your credit score, given the fact that you want to borrow $50,000 on a $500,000 house and it's paid for, so there's a 10% mortgage on the property, we're going to let you waive the appraisal. Well, the borrower has really at least two choices or three. The borrower can go, "Oh, okay," or the borrower can say, "No, I want the appraisal," or the borrower can say,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, okay, I'll take the waiver, but I'm going to get my own appraisal just so I can
Mm-hmm.
see what's going on." So the concept of the public trust, I liked your description of it, the nebulous concept of the public trust is not being violated because the public has the ability to choose accept a waiver,
Right.
don't accept a waiver, get their own appraisal. So there
Mm-hmm.
is not a violation of the public trust because nobody's trying to pull the wool over anybody else's eyes.
Right.
It's just giving the borrower, and not all borrowers, by the way, just a relatively few number of borrowers, a choice when they don't need an appraisal. And the
Yeah,
fact
Tim,
that, oh, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you. A lot of appraisers don't know, and this won't matter to an appraiser whose personal business has been vastly affected by appraisal waivers, although I don't think they really know whether their business has been affected by appraisal waivers or the AMC business they have or whatever. But on any given month, the mortgage transactions, only about 15%. This is the data from AEI.org. About 15% of mortgages received the waiver offer, and about 12% of those were accepted, which means 3% basically said for some other reason, no, we'll get an appraisal anyway. 15%. Now that has gone up from not from point oh something 5 years ago. It's increasing, and of course we saw it 46 or 47% during the pandemic. It's come way down, but on any given month, in nationally, about 15% of the mortgage transactions qualify for the waiver, which shouldn't really, when you think about it, be killing anybody's business. My guess is if your business is down, there are other factors that are at play, not just waivers.
Well, you mentioned other factors. Danny Wiley did an interview with Jeff Morley and Mark Verrett, in which he said, "Yeah, things are down, but remember, things are down not solely and only because we're offering waivers. The whole market's down.
Right.
So,
That's right.
so whether you like waivers or not, whether you think they are uh, evil incarnate or they're just part of doing business, the point is, if your business is down, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of the waiver issue in there, but it's also because everybody's business is down. So,
Yeah.
um, so when we talk about the public trust, um, we're not giving up the public trust by offering the public waivers because we're not offering, or the lenders are not offering the public waivers. They're offering, as you indicated, a very small minority of potential borrowers the waivers.
Right.
And those potential borrowers are those that are low risk borrowers. So now,
Low
even though,
risk to Fannie and Freddie. This is the important point. Low risk to Fannie and Freddie. To the buyer, appraisers need to understand everybody is self-interested. That buyer wants to get into that house. In most cases, if there is some variance in the opinion of an appraiser on market value, most buyers of new homes would say, yeah, we're good with it, because people buy speculatively. Most buyers are not buying assuming that their house is going to go up drastically the next year. So most buyers well, certainly the last 10, 12 years understood I might be paying a little over the current market value, but we're going to be there a while. We're buying speculatively. We understand that the market will probably catch up. And so most buyers understand, and they're self-interested. They want that house. And so this concept that, oh, they received a waiver and nobody told them that it's not the market value, and we're messing with those buyers and we're messing with the It's not really true. It's kind of a myth.
It uh, has there been somebody out there who overpaid for real estate? Yeah, there probably has, but it's not that in and of itself has not been the genesis of every real estate crash that has taken place over the last 100 years. So,
No.
all right, let's go on. Okay, we've been talking about appraisal waivers. Let's get right to appraisals. Is a credible appraisal and a non-misleading appraisal report a function of intellect or a function of mechanics?
Mm. Good question. Of course, anytime we talk about these things and we use certain words, it's important to define so that everybody's on the same page of as far as the definitions of those words. But I'll take them at face value that I think more intellect is involved or should be involved than mechanics. I think it's a combination of intellect and mechanics, but intellect connotes and implies an impartial and objective analysis, critical thinking, and research that is being done to come up with your conclusion, to come up with a conclusion or a thought about something. And I think that's probably more important personally, having been an appraiser for 25 years and trained a bunch of them, to try to encourage the intellectual side over the mechanical side. Uh, this is important maybe for the future too. The mechanical things, this is true of all industries. If it's mechanical and it's repetitive, it can be replaced. And we talk a lot about making yourself irreplaceable, developing the aspects, the skills, the talents that make you not easily replaced. And I think the more you tend to the mechanical, you're sacrificing the intellectual, the intellect and the rational, and the critical thinking side. So I would say it should be more intellectual and less mechanical, personally.
Okay, now I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. That's not the point.
Please do.
Yet, real estate appraisal education is primarily mechanical. You walk
Absolutely.
into real estate school, and even if you want to do nothing but appraise hotels eventually, you walk into real estate appraisal school, and basically you learn how to fill out forms.
That's right.
So that's the mechanical aspect of what we
Mhm.
do. But yet you and I both agree that yeah, there's a mechanical aspect. There has to be. There's a mechanical aspect in surgery. Okay. But the point is, the surgeon has to understand everything else before the surgeon can engage in the mechanics of taking out an
Mhm.
appendix or replacing a heart or fixing a knee. Um, is our real estate appraisal education system, and I realize that you have not looked at the entire system, nobody has, but given what you know of it, could it be more profitably oriented toward the intellectual rather than so deeply oriented, at least at the beginning, so deeply oriented at the mechanical?
Oh, good question. You added a key word there, which may have changed my answer. You said profitably. Uh, I think the way the education system has been set up for profit, which is how do we increase the success rate to move people through this education system? And I think if it was more difficult intellectually, critical thinking is tough to teach to people. I don't know. I might question whether or not that's a more profitable system. It's kind of the teach the man a fish theory. We all know. Give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish. You feed him for a lifetime. The reality is most people want to be given the fish. They want it packaged up. They want directions on how to cook it. Like, don't teach me how to fish. I don't want to know how to fish. Just give me the fish. And I think the education system has been set up to just give them the fish, put them out into the world. But that certainly is in my opinion, one of the weak spots in the appraisal profession that has led to where appraisers are today. It's not the whole thing, but it's a big part of it because it misleads appraisers into thinking that the mechanical is the thing. And the form specifically that you mentioned, the 1004 is the most common that we know, Fannie Mae's form. The form based education, if you will, erroneously leads appraisers to believe that the form is the appraisal. And as we know, the form is not the appraisal. The form is the delivery mechanism. The form is the canvas with which we paint our story, disseminate our rationale. And I think too many appraisers, from what I've seen from doing reviews for 25 years and coaching appraisers and being part of a big company and things like that, too many appraisers believe appraising is the form. And I think that does come from the education system. And then the corollary to that, Tim, is the education system focuses solely on the mechanical aspect and zero on the business aspect. And so you have a lot of appraisers in the industry that know zero about running a business. They know nothing about marketing. They know nothing about networking. They know nothing about relationship building, about understanding a P&L statement, about running it like a CEO, a president of a company. They get into it and they become essentially a government vendor where they just sign up on the lists and they go, throw me something today, throw me something today, and they become a government vendor. And essentially, you have no control. So I'm a big fan of controlling the controllables and making sure that we are skewed or biased on the side of the things we can control, the dials we can turn up and down to improve our business. And if you're just doing the mechanical, it is replaceable. It is commoditized, which we know now. And when you are in a commoditized aspect of a profession or an industry, the sorting mechanism is price and speed. And I think that's what appraisers are experiencing without understanding macro business concepts is when they're complaining about fees on social media and AMCs and all the damage AMCs have done, what they're really expressing is their lack of understanding of a commoditization process. The appraisals, the mechanical appraisal aspect has been commoditized. The intellectual part hasn't, but the mechanical aspect, putting it on a form, delivering that is commoditized, and it is chosen primarily, not in all cases, primarily based on how fast can you do it, how cheaply can you do it. So from a business standpoint, if you want to improve your business, your lot in life in 2025 and beyond, I would recommend focusing in the direction and areas and with your skill sets that make you not replaceable, taking your focus off of the mechanical onto the intellectual, the critical thinking aspect, and then we can talk about all the skill sets that I think are required. But yeah, essentially, it's one of the big challenges, the commoditization of an industry.
Blaine, that's a great segue. Thank you. Let's talk about skill sets.
Sure.
Okay, so here we are, we're recording this at the beginning of 2025. 2025 had just started. So in 2 years, all right, I'm asking you to, pull out the crystal ball and peer into the future. In 2 years, what skill set or ideally skill sets is somebody who wants to be an appraiser going to need to bring to the table in order to properly answer a client's valuation questions?
Yeah, great question and a big one. We could probably talk for a long time on it. I think primarily, we talked about mechanics and the intellectual aspects of things. I think the analytical side is still going to be there, but we've been talking for years, especially in our coaching groups, about the bifurcation of the industry, whereby one path is the commoditization aspect, kind of the dumbing down. You are going to be sitting in front of a computer just doing low paid data analytics and data entry type stuff. We're seeing that path being formed right now. We've been seeing it over the years. And then the other path is the higher paid specialist, if you will, where you understand the complex aspects of appraisal. You're doing more complex deals. You're thinking and using your intellect over the mechanics. And then, of course, there is another bifurcation off of that, which is the non-lender side. I think the non-lender side will remain robust for a long time because that side of the market segment for us as appraisers, they don't care about forms. They're asking you your opinion, your experience, your wisdom. They don't know a form. They don't know comps on a grid. They don't know adjustments, and so they're not expecting anything in particular. They're expecting a human being to take them by the hand and say, I've researched everything. My analytics tell me this. My experience and wisdom tells me this. And we give you our opinion. So analytical's still going to be there, but I think the focus is changing on where that the analysis is applied, because we know now that software and technology can replace or supplement and complement a lot of that analysis. The big skill set, communication, big umbrella word for understanding how to communicate with human beings, how to communicate your rationale and your opinions. I think the advancement and proliferation of artificial intelligence is creating a whole new set of illiterates. And the illiterates are not the people who don't understand AI. The illiterates are the people who cannot hold a conversation with another human being. That's what AI is creating. That's what technology is creating. What AI and the advancement of technology is not doing, it is not changing our human desires at all. And our deepest human desires are to connect with other human beings. And so I think the most successful people going forward are going to be the ones who can communicate like a real human being with another human being, can take them by the hand and lead them into the world that they want instead of the world that they came from. So appraisers, if they want to be successful, successful is another big term, but if they want to be truly successful and have some independence, communication skills absolutely at the top, in my opinion.
How does one improve one's communication skills?
Mm, Good question. Lots of options and opportunities. I mean, we have some coaching students who take Toastmasters, for example. If you're not familiar with Toastmasters, it's a group format. There is a structure and a system, but you can go into these uh, um, clubs, I guess, if you will, and learn from creating an icebreaker, and you get to speak in front of your peers, and they catch you on your ahs and your ums, but they do it in a very uplifting and comfortable way, so you don't feel shamed, and you can become a better speaker through company classes and courses like Toastmasters. Um, I personally have found that reading and writing helped me become a better communicator. I write a lot and I read a lot. And of course, when you're reading and writing, I'm talking outside of industry documents and things like that, although those are always good. But reading and writing outside of that improves your vocabulary. But I think most importantly, Tim, uh, going back to the old world, how do we make friends and influence or win friends and influence people? Those kinds of books where you become a better communicator by learning to listen. You become a better communicator by asking good questions. The other human being on the other side of you will give you everything you need to know to be a good communicator if we just shut up and listen, and not listen to respond, but actually listen to then take the conversation further, go deeper, and understand how to be a better communicator.
Blaine, thank you. Given your background in martial arts, I don't know if you're fluent in Japanese, but you are familiar with Japanese. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Not fluent.
Has the ability to communicate, or let me rephrase, has the ability to speak another language, has the ability to understand another language, has the ability to understand another culture
Hmm.
helped you as a communicator?
Awesome question. I was waiting as you were saying that because I was trying to listen to understand, not listen to respond. You added the critical word, which is cultures, I think. Certainly, when you learn another language, there are people who are going to hear this who are multilingual, way beyond myself, that will understand this intimately. That when even just taking on another language, you start to immerse yourself in the culture. You're reading about the culture, you're learning about it, you're learning about how they conjugate verbs and so on and so forth. But I think that's the real key. Even beyond learning the language, understanding a different culture. I think beyond what the martial arts allowed me was travel. I've traveled to, I don't know the number of countries, but all through Eastern and Western Europe, um, Japan, China, all around the world, Russia, Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Poland, Czech Republic, all these different places. And you see different cultures and you realize just how small and ignorant you are when you immerse yourself in another culture. Yes, I think it was absolutely instrumental, has been, in learning to communicate. My first real education at this, though, Tim, was when my family bought a grocery store. I often referred in the podcast to the ghetto grocery store. They bought a grocery store in kind of a bad part of our town at the time, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And here I was, a white middle class individual. Uh, and all of a sudden I'm working at this ghetto grocery store dealing with a whole different segment of the population that I didn't understand sometimes what they were saying to me. I didn't understand their tone and their why they were saying it the way they were saying it. And working there for 5 years, again, it was a cultural shock. And I learned just how limited my upbringing had been in that regard. And I learned communication was your savior. Communication was your best self-defense. To be able to talk somebody down from an angry position, to be able to talk to somebody at their level, and not talk at them, but talk with them. So, understanding different cultures, even if they're just right here in the United States, in your neighborhood.
Blaine, one more question on this, if I may. The ability to communicate, and you put it specifically in the context of speaking. You mentioned Toastmasters, but you also mentioned that you do a lot of writing, which results from doing a lot of reading, and it's outside of real estate appraisal. So, explain, if you would, the importance of writing to become a good communicator. Writing is not merely sitting down and saying, well, I gave most weight to comparable number three. Writing, especially the communication end of it, is I gave most weight to number three because. And you do a lot of review work. I do a lot of review work. I see a lot of appraisals that are up before state appraisal boards. I see a lot of appraisal reports that are going to court. And there is a weakness. We say, I gave greatest weight to number three. Rarely do we say, I gave greatest weight to number three because. So, how could, excuse me, let me rephrase, how does reading a lot and then writing make you a better communicator?
Mm-hmm. Great question. For me, my experience, I developed a kind of a writing habit, I would say, well, many years ago, just journaling, personal journaling. And then I turned that into a writing habit where every morning I get up, I sit down at my writing table. And one of my mentors 20 years ago is an acting coach and a writer. And I saw him on a trip. We were on a keto trip in Wales, and he would every morning sit out on a little bench at this Airbnb style place we were staying at, and he would just write. And I sat down next to him one morning and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm doing an exercise." This was a very accomplished writer, actor, but he said, I'm always pushing myself. And he was doing this exercise that one of his mentors gave him, which was every morning to write stream of consciousness, minimum 1,500 words. This was before, ease of laptops and things. So he was handwriting in his journal, and he challenged me to do it. And so I started to sit down, and it was one of the hardest things I had to do was to just start kind of vomiting on the paper and in the book and writing whatever came to mind. But I found that when you engage your brain that way, there's always something that comes out. And it's like the magician who pulls the silk out of their pocket, and it just keeps coming and coming and coming. Is once you start, there's always something. And then you see things start to form. You see ideas and pictures and colors and directions you can go with the writing. And so that kind of started my writing habit, if you will. And I have noticed over the years, undoubtedly, my vocabulary has expanded, my ability to articulate, my ability to speak without ahs and ums all the time came primarily out of that exercise of writing. Because not only am I able to unload all of my thoughts onto the page, when you really get into writing something, you also then go down the research path. So quite often, if I'm writing for the podcast, I will sometimes not even know what I want to speak about. but I start the writing habit. I just sit down and I start writing something, and then something will pop up and I'll go, let me research that. Sometimes it's just a word. And I'll go down the path, I'll go to Google and I'll start researching a word, and then I'll find an author and I'll find a quote. And then halfway through writing, I'll go, there it is. It just revealed itself, the direction I want to go. And it's been immensely helpful, in my opinion, in helping me formulate thoughts in that arena. And I think undoubtedly has made me a better appraiser as a result, for the reason you just said. Instead of just saying, I gave the most weight to sale 3, it's I gave the most weight to sale 3 for these reasons. We gave less weight to sale 4 for these reasons, expressing our rationale in a clear and understandable way.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Blaine, are you going to be doing any speaking, any public speaking, any traveling and speaking the remainder of the year?
Well, Dustin Harris, the great Dustin Harris, and I have it's a very exclusive, very limited, we're doing a retreat up in the hills of California. Course Gold, California will be in May. It's called the Elevate Retreat. Super limited. There's only 15 seats available. But Dustin and I are going to be leading a 3-day retreat, all on business. There will be no CE. There will be no mechanics of appraisal. There will be no form writing. There's going to be no use pap talk. It's all about business, wealth building, meditation, yoga. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff, but probably the first of its kind for the appraisal profession, but a true retreat style where you'll be drinking from a fire hose on improving your life, your business, learning to invest, all of those things. That will be an opportunity. There may be some opportunities in some of the conferences coming up, August, September, those kinds of things. And then, of course, my own coaching travels and things like that with our coaching groups.
Blaine, when someone wishes to get in touch with you, what is your email address?
Yeah, they can just go to coachblaine.com and find it there, or Blaine at Real Value Group. Real Value Group is the umbrella company that owns all the other companies that I have, but Blaine at realvaluegroup.com, or just go to the coachblaine.com website and shoot me an email from there.
And so everybody knows he answers his emails. I know because he answers mine. So, Blaine, again, let me thank you. Let me thank you for the insight. Let me thank you for the without knowing a better word, the simple humility of your wisdom. And you have earned and merit the term sensei. So, domo arigato. And I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you. I appreciate
so we will, with any luck, we'll see you at one of the conferences this year. And good luck with your retreat. To you and Destin, good luck with your retreat. And my best to your family. We'll be in touch. Thank you, Blaine.
And to yours, my friend. See you next time.
Thank you.